Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, Brewer fans, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast with yours truly, Craig, and I've got with me my co-host Vince here today. Vince, how's it going?
I'm doing great, Craig. Doing awesome. It's been a great week for Brewers fans, that's for sure.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's a great time to be a Brewer fan. So congratulations to the 2024 Milwaukee Brewers, your NL Central champions, as they just clinched it the other day. Happened to be at the game for the walk-off after it was kind of already decided the afternoon when the Craig Counsell and the Cubs luckily lost to hand us the division, which is nice of them. Thank you, Craig. So overall, it's pretty awesome. The Brewers were the first team to clinch a playoff spot this year, which if you would have told me that before the season started, that the Brewers would be the first team to clinch a playoff spot in MLB, I would not have believed you. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was pretty great. I think Cleveland was next the next day, which was also kind of a surprise. Certainly some surprising results this baseball season. I'm really excited and happy for the organization. We've talked about it a number of times on this podcast, but I really do think that this is reflective of Pat Murphy's leadership in that clubhouse. I think that you're seeing his style permeate and come through on the field. And, to me, there's a clear difference between the mindset of this team under Pat Murphy compared to the mindset of the team under our former manager. I can't remember his name, but it's night and day. And I think that it's pretty exciting to see a team kind of step up in ways that for what it's worth, this team, I think, is going to be more talented in terms of its personnel than many other teams around the league in future seasons. But honestly, we're doing more with less this year, or more with guys who just haven't established themselves yet this year. I think Christian Yelich, termed it as playing with house money, and I love that mentality. I love that they're just, they're not worried about what the prognosticators in New York said back in March, other than that it puts a chip on their shoulder. I think that's the difference, and that they don't let themselves get bogged down in, national debates about, how tough the Dodgers are and how tough, the Phillies are and other teams. And yes, those teams are definitely tough, but I love the fact that the Brewers are right there with them. This has been an exciting season from start to finish. And the other surprising thing is not only that we've won the division first among other, teams around the league, but also that the Brewers have really not given up their position at the top of the division since April. I mean, we pretty much ran the gamut all season. We've been a first place team. And, to me, that just, again, speaks to the quality of both the leadership in the clubhouse and just the depth in the organization.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm pretty sure they have gone just about wire to wire, leading the division, which is, again, astounding. Also, I read that the Brewers are the only team in MLB baseball who have not had more than a 4-game losing streak the entire season. So, Again, I think that really speaks well to the mentality that Pat Murphy has instilled. I also should give you kudos, Vince, for being pretty much the first Brewer fan on the Pat Murphy bandwagon. It's been a great ride at the front of that bus this whole season. It's hard
ever since that first introductory press conference he did last November, after whatever his name is deserted us for the Cubs. I think that he just brings a fresh approach, despite the fact that he had been there for a number of years with the organization. I love the fact that, Pat was able to kind of put his own stamp on things this year, and you can tell that. And again, this truly isn't to take away anything from Craig Counsell, but it's just different. It's a different mentality. It's a different stamp. It's a different approach, and I think it fits much better with a younger team. And I think that that's exactly what you're seeing, kind of come into place this September is, the right approach for the right group of guys at the right time.
Well, and I believe Pat Murphy was a longtime head baseball coach at Notre Dame. Is that correct? Isn't that correct?
Not only Notre Dame, but also Arizona State University, where, and I know that you have got long-standing ties to that.
Oh, yeah.
That university, based on your scouting of spring break at Puerto Penasco, going back decades at this point. So those two schools, I think, is where he got his collegiate start as a manager.
Well, and I guess the point I was going to try to make, yeah, kudos to the Arizona State Spring Breakers. I definitely miss you guys. But yeah, the fact that he coached college and those that guys in their early 20s, I think really speaks to his success at this team because I think that experience and being able to get a team like that bond together and play together on a game by game basis has really been the story for the success of this team. I mean, you've got Jackson Trio, who's only 20 years old, and by the way, as a 20-year-old, he accomplished a 2020 season that's pretty phenomenal, and he's had an unbelievable second half. After there was even some talk, even on our show, about should he be sent down for more seasoning after a rough patch in the first couple months of the season. He's really coming to his own, and you can really see his superstar potential moving forward, which is exciting. But the fact that there are so many young guys that are having breakouts this year, and with Terang, Freelick, and Mitchell on the
Yeah.
offensive side. Even like the majority of our team is under 25 years old, it seems. You really think that Pat Murphy's influence and experience coaching college teams has had an impact on the way that these guys play on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's a huge key to the success, and it will be moving forward, as I think the Brewers will always have a young core of a team, given the fact that they're a small market team and have to rely on guys that they draft more so than other big market teams. So I think he's a perfect match for the Brewers with his experience. And obviously, in my opinion, he should get hands down manager of the year, which is funny because we had always thought our previous manager, again, was deserving of it over the last 5 year period of time, and he kept getting looked over. I really hope that doesn't happen to Pat Murphy this year. There's some talk that the Mets manager Mendoza is a candidate as well, but I really think Pat Murphy should be a hands down NL manager of the year. So we shall see.
Yeah, we'll celebrate that after he actually gets named as the first manager of the year in franchise history, actually, for what it's worth. But I just wanted to point out a couple quick stats really quick, just looking at some numbers when you brought up Jackson Chourio. Jackson Chourio is the youngest player in Major League Baseball history to post a 2020 season. So it's not just, wow, he's really good this year. He's historically good. And we had our Scotty's interns post this on Twitter, but Willie Mays, when he was a 20-year-old playing in Major League Baseball, he hit 20 home runs, and Jackson Chourio now has 21 or 22 as of this taping, 21. But he surpassed Willie Mays as a 20-year-old. So again, I'm not trying to put him in the same breath as Willie Mays yet. Obviously, a lot of time and years to go for him to even come close to anything on that level. To one of the most remarkable players in Major League history. But I just did want to point that out, that at their age 20 seasons, that comp is there. And Jackson Chourio actually has posted more home runs than Willie did at that same age.
Unbelievable. No, and I think your point is valid that the seeds are there to possibly sprout a superstar caliber player with a potential legendary Hall of Fame career arc. Given that he's just a 20-year-old right now. I mean, it's not too many 20-year-olds, as you point out, have ever accomplished that, even among the baseball greats.
None. I mean, literally none.
So
nobody that's done that at the same age. When Willie Mays was, I just am being handed the stats here by Star, and when Willie Mays was 20 years old, he had 20 home runs, and he posted 7 stolen bases.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So the fact that if you're a Brewer fan, you're not excited about the fact that the Brewers signed him before he even played a game in the major leagues. And now we still have control of him, I think, for 9 more seasons, technically, beyond this year. It's pretty phenomenal to think about what he's going to mean to the franchise for the next decade. And another quick little segue into, speaking of legends in history, I just wanted to point out that, and congratulate, I guess, unfortunately, he is with an NL rival, but Shohei Ohtani just yesterday became a 50-50 player with one of the I call it the greatest single hitting game of all time when he went 6 for 6, 3 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 5 extra base hits, 10
RBIs.
10 RBIs, like an unbelievable game. And to me, I'm calling it now that Shohei Ohtani will go on down as like the Babe Ruth of the 21st century when all is said and done. He's an unbelievable player, and he still has.
Well, the fact that he pitches as well, not this season yet, but the fact that he's a pitcher too. And my only question with Shohei is he going to be the first player in Major League Baseball history to achieve 100% of the vote on the first ballot for the Hall of Fame. I think Mariano Rivera got like 99%. I'd have to look up the numbers. We'll ask the interns to get on it. But I'm wondering if Shohei is going to get the first unanimous Hall of Fame selection on the first ballot. So we have to look back at, what they had a different balloting system in the first year of the Hall of Fame when, post their careers, five guys got in the first class with Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, and Honus Wagner, and it was a different class, but or a different system. But I'll be very interested to see if Shohei is unanimous. I can't imagine how anybody could ever vote against this guy for being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and I think you're going to be spot on with that call. I should also point out another possible legend in the making, and someone who's probably not even going to win the AL MVP, but Bobby Witt Jr. just became the first player in MLB history to have a 30 homers, 30 steals, 40 doubles, and I think 10 triples. 40 doubles, 10 triples, 30 homers, 30 steals. And by the way, he's hitting 330 and leading the AL and batting average as well. So, yeah, he's pretty good. And I think he's only 24 years old. Or actually, I don't even think he's that. I think he's like 23 years old.
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr., I mean, he's awesome. They had also signed him to a long-term contract, I think, as well. He's 24.
Okay, yeah. So unbelievable career to come for him as well. So a lot of great talent in the league, and luckily one of the biggest ones on the Brewers is Jackson Chourio. But as a Brewer fan, if you would have told me in the middle of September last year, just over a year ago, that next season the Brewers would be the first team to clinch a playoff berth and win the NL division, NL Central going away without the services mostly of Christian Yelich, Corbin Burns, or Brandon Woodruff, I'd have been like, are you kidding me? How's that possible? But here we are. So
yeah.
Again, just pinching.
Well, Craig, I just want to. No, I totally agree. It's pretty unbelievable and pretty exciting, and this franchise is in a really good spot right now too. And I think that going forward, and obviously we'll see what happens this postseason. Anything can happen. This is a fun, young, talented team. They're playing with house money. They got nothing to lose. So I could see us. Chasing this thing down and winning the pennant, or who knows? And it's pretty exciting. And you could also foresee where they, have another first round exit. But I say all that just because I think that there is a lot of hope for both this year and future years with this team. And, don't forget that next year, hopefully Christian Yelich is healthy and Brandon Woodruff is back in the rotation, and Robert Gasser is coming back in June or July. And, we've just got so many interesting and exciting pieces that are part of the puzzle that the Brewers are, going to be able to see both this year and in the years to come. It's really exciting, and also another year of maturity for all these young guys who, are rookies this season, Ortiz and Chourio and Tobias Myers. It's been really exciting to watch.
Absolutely.
Hey, no, Craig, I gotta ask really quick. Do you think that Jackson Chourio has a chance at being named Rookie of the Year this year? I know that it's going to be pretty tough with Paul Skeens and Jackson Merrill from the Padres, both having great years as well. But I'm sure we'll get into individual awards after the season is done. But what do you think about Chourio?
I think he's got an excellent chance, but I don't think he's the favorite, unfortunately. I think if I had to bet money, I'd probably put it on Skeens, just because he was literally the NL starter in the All-Star game. And he's had a pretty phenomenal season all the way to the end. But with that being said, Merrill also, it'll be close. But there's no doubt that those three players are all deserving. So we'll see. And I'll obviously be rooting for Jackson to get that, as it would actually mean the Brewers getting if I'm not mistaken, extra draft pick if he ends up being Rookie of the Year, since they started the season in the major leagues. But anyway,
yeah, it's kind of interesting under the current collective bargaining, because they actually lose a year of control typically over like a guy reaches his service time fully if he wins the Rookie of the Year, which is a big deal with Skeens. It's not an issue at all with Chourio, since we signed him to that extension. But for the Pirates, they may actually be rooting against him to win the award. It's sort of counterintuitive, and there was some talk that the Pirates might get really cheap and send him back to AAA, or sit him on the bench, or come up with a phantom injury just so he didn't win the award.
Huh, that's interesting. I didn't think he was eligible for that, because I don't think he started the year with the Pirates. But yeah, that is interesting. Getting back to your now that we're in it, we got a chance to win it type of thing. I totally agree with that philosophy. Obviously, I thought last year we were lined up with our best talent, so to speak, heading in the playoffs, and the path seemed to be, had it's tough to look back on, but I really thought that that was going to be our year to make a great run. Wasn't to be. And if you had told me, well, don't worry, we'll be back in the same position next year, I'd been like, yeah, right. But so the fact that we are here, anything
Hey,
can
I did say
happen.
that. I did say that. It's on our podcast.
Oh, awesome. Well, I did not say that. But anyway, what I'll say is that if you look at the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, who both made it and matched up in the World Series last year, no team had those guys with a chance going into the year, going into the postseason in last year, and they made a run. So I really feel the Brewers could do as such. I mean, I think the main key to us is outside of Yelich, we're really healthy enough right now going into, knock on wood, going into the postseason, that I think that we, can make some noise. And I think that the biggest hurdle will be getting past the first round, because as we saw last year, unfortunately, the Brewers, they still have an outside chance. I think we're 3 games with 9 to play. We're 3 games behind both the Dodgers and the Phillies for one of the top 2 seeds. Unfortunately, they own the tiebreakers over us, both those teams. So it's not realistic, in my opinion, the Brewers will get a first round bye. So what that means is we are going to be playing the third wild card team. And at this point, it looks like it's going to be, well, one of 3 teams most likely, and that would be the New York Mets are currently in that position. The Braves, I think, are 2 games behind them, and I think the Diamondbacks are they're tied or 1 game ahead of the Mets for that same spot. So it's going to probably be one of those 3 teams. I don't know if you have a preference, and I hate like trying to pick your poison type thing, but do you have a preference on who our first round opponent would be, Vince? Those 3 teams.
The first round teams that you mentioned, I think that the Mets, honestly, I am not scared of the Mets at all. The Brewers have played them well this year. That larger picture on the macro level, and obviously we've got to get past the first round. I think that the Phillies scare me the most out of all of our potential opponents throughout the playoffs. We were 2-4 against them this year. I know that the 3 games in Philadelphia were close games, but we did lose all 3 games. We got swept in Philly earlier this year. Philadelphia scares me the most of any teams, and that's why I am still really hoping for that first round bye. Just it would be great to pass them, but that's obviously going to be difficult. So yeah, I think that the Mets, though, amongst first round teams, I think that they're probably the weakest of that grouping. The Braves have obviously played short of expectations this year. They've obviously, suffered some real injuries on that team, and they're obviously lacking Acuna. But I think at the end of the day, they're still a very, very strong, dangerous team, and I really don't want to take them lightly or see them in the postseason. So I would say that the Mets would be my preference.
I actually concur with that, mostly because the Mets pitching staff does not scare me. I mean, their best starter so far this year has been like Sean Manaea, who I wouldn't know if I had signed him as a free agent, as a Burr fan. Jose Quintana is in there, and also Luis Severino, but none of those guys. I think our pitching is far better than the Mets, and hitting wise too. So I'm actually surprised the Mets are even in the position that they're in, which they're overachieving, which is great. But like you said, the thing with the Braves, I would love the main reason I'd like to avoid the Braves in the first round. And again, they are compromised without Acuna, and their other big third base slugger, Austin Riley, is out right now. Um, Chris Sale is probably hands down going to win the NL Cy Young Award, and he's absolutely been ridiculous here. He's 18-3 with like a 2-something ERA, and he strikes out like every other batter. So I'd probably prefer not to face him in the game one of the supposed 3-game wild card series coming up. So yeah, I'd like to avoid them if at all possible. And in the same, we obviously, I don't want to, I don't necessarily want to get revenge on the Diamondbacks, just because again, I'd rather avoid Zach Gallen, and again, I think that they have talented hitters up and down their lineup, much like we do. So I'd prefer to avoid them. But again, I think that we're ready for the challenge, and with all games being at home for this potential, best of 3 series, I feel confident the Brewers are going to fare better than they did last year, no matter who the opponent is. So that leads me then to talk about what you did, the teams beyond that. We're going to have to somehow get by the Phillies and most likely the Dodgers, both the teams, unless someone else takes them out in the second and third rounds in order to get to the World Series. And yeah, I agree with your assessment that the Phillies are the tougher of the 2 teams. We did just take 2 or 3 of them here at AmFam Field, but they are a tough team, top to bottom, especially, I mean, both pitching, their starting pitching is pretty ridiculous. Zach Wheeler is probably going to be runner-up for Cy Young Award winner. They've got Aaron Nola, A couple other guys. Sanchez has been unbelievable for them. And their bullpen has been kind of remade and it's pretty solid. And obviously they have some really unbelievable hitters with, you're talking like obviously Schwarber, um,
Trey
Turner,
Turner,
Harper,
Bryce Harper.
and
Yeah.
Castellanos and a couple other guys. I mean, they have a pretty formidable Real Muto. So yeah, they have a pretty formidable offense. I think we can beat them though in a series, so I'm not too alarmed by that. Even the Dodgers, their pitching is severely compromised at this point, especially starting pitching. I think Kershaw probably won't even make it back this year. They're desperate out there, even talking about maybe Shohei could be used as a pitcher in the playoffs. If they're talking that desperate already, you know that they're in trouble. Walker Bueller is it's been a terrible season, coming back from injury. Um, so they don't scare me as much. Obviously, if you look at their offense, they have Babe Ruth 2.0 and Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman, who's a probably first, shoe-in Hall of Famer as well, and Mookie Betts. I forgot to mention. I mean, probably three of the top five hitters in the
Yeah,
NL.
I mean, they're absolutely stacked. Yeah, Freddie
So
Freeman. I mean, it's
they're going to be
yeah,
tough. So obviously, we'll have to see what happens, but I really feel that the Brewers can make a magical run this year. Like gotta stay positive. So it's been a magical run, and
yeah.
at this point, anything is kind of gravy on the unbelievable season that they've already had.
Yeah, I'm still angry that the Dodgers picked up Jack Flaherty for virtually nothing at the deadline. That pisses me off. But yeah, the rotation is definitely taken a hit with injuries over the course of the season. And the Dodgers are obviously stacked. They're an incredibly deep and talented team. I just think that with everything being on the table, I think that the Phillies just scare me a little bit more. I don't know what it is, but I've been saying that since the beginning of the season. I think that their offense is just that good. I think that they're hungry for a world championship, just having gotten so close the last two seasons. I think that there's that that real chip on their shoulder that they're playing with this year, and I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility that Milwaukee can beat the Phillies or the Dodgers or the Braves or the Mets or anybody, and anything could happen in the postseason for sure. We could get swept and we could win the World Series. That's just how the postseason goes. But and we have seen more talented Brewers teams in the past get knocked out by teams that were most definitely less talented on paper. I think 2018 with the Dodgers and 2019 with the Nationals, and so anything can happen in the postseason, and we can be that less talented on paper team that does sneak through a little bit more this year. That being said, I think that the Phillies absolutely scare me the most out of any team in the postseason.
Yeah, no, I agree with your Phillies getting bounced early and not meeting expectations the last 2 years when I think they had a World Series caliber team, make them the most hungry team. But I think the Brewers also have a chip on their shoulder after getting bounced in the playoffs last year. And a lot of these guys, like True, weren't even on that team. But the bottom line is the Brewers, I think that they're a more dangerous team just to the fact that they have so many young guys that they, a lot of times if you look back at the history of success of teams, there are a lot of times, even if you look back at the 82 Brewers, which of course all Brewer fans love to do, you know that there's just a bunch of young guys that came together at the right time or whatever, mixed in with some veterans. I feel like we have a good team to do such. So I think that, I'm hoping that we exceed expectations as we've done all season, and really excited for the playoffs this year. So
well, yeah, let's put it this way. I'm not opposed to being in this position. I think that there were other Brewers teams where the expectation and the pressure was more on the Brewers to succeed than it will be this year. And I think that, I hate to use the term for the third time in the podcast, but if we're playing with house money, that means that there's a lot less pressure on us to win. And there's a lot more pressure on the Phillies not to lose. And I think that that's probably a good position to be in. And I think that mindset, when you're too young to know any better type of thing. You're too young to know that the other team is supposed to win. You're too young to know that every other, prognosticator around baseball has picked you to finish fourth in the division outside of Brew Review. And like, those are the types of things that this team has defied all season. And maybe it's because they don't know any better. Maybe it's because they don't care. Maybe it's because their manager, maybe it's because they're more talented, but nobody knows it yet. And who knows what it is, but that mindset can certainly continue to carry over here this postseason. And if it doesn't, well, we've had a really fun, outstanding year, and we're going to be even better next year. But if it does, and it could, then this team is going to go down as one of the most fun, best teams in franchise history. It's really fun to think about that as a possibility.
Yeah, and again, most of the Burr fans probably listening to that weren't alive, but this team, and I was a young child, but like, and you were just out of the womb, I think. But when the Brewers won the 1980 or made the playoffs in 1981, this feels like that team where like they're kind of just getting going on potential great things. And it felt like, well, it's
Yeah.
not quite our time yet, but it's like that chance of overachieving. And you're right about pointing out that the Phillies, since they were um, underachievers, or they didn't the last two seasons, there's more pressure on them ultimately.
Yeah.
Like if they don't make it to the World Series this year or even win it, there's going to be like, hey, should we, organizational wise, should we make some changes? There's got to be some accountability here. And in spite of their successes,
Well,
so I think that will would create some guys to possibly press when it comes to playoff time. Whereas we're just like you mentioned, playing with house money as a bunch of young guys. So I like our
yeah,
chance.
and I'm not a like let's cry poverty franchise all the time. Because that's not where we are anymore. First of all, and second, it's just not helpful. But look at the Phillies payroll compared to ours, and there is a ton more pressure in that clubhouse and from that ownership group, I would imagine. And I don't know that we've used our press passes in the Phillies clubhouse at all this year, but I do think that because of the payroll disparities, that there has to be that level of pressure in that Phillies clubhouse to deliver. I mean, if you're Rob Thompson, if the Phillies manager, if you're Bryce Harper, owner of the largest contract in Phillies franchise history, if you're, Aaron Nola, if you're these guys, you have to feel that pressure to deliver from ownership on some level. I mean, they brought in a lot of these guys as free agents. Not much of their team is actually homegrown at all. It's just not. I'm not ripping on them, but that's not the Phillies' approach. They've gone out and they have bought, one of the best lineups in baseball. But most of those guys are free agent acquisitions or guys acquired in sort of lopsided trades like JT Realmuto or so I'm just saying that because the pressure is there. It's a different kind of pressure than I think that what comes up organically when you're playing with a group of guys in comparison who are drafted together or who come in as young guys in trades. I think that's a much different mentality in the Brewers clubhouse than it is in the Phillies clubhouse.
Absolutely. So, and also should point out that speaking of some star players that the Brewers could have to face coming up in the postseason, you're looking at the Phillies with left-hand hitting Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, and obviously on the Dodgers we already mentioned Shohei and Freddie Freeman, both left-handed hitters. We've got some pretty secret left-hand secret weapons in the Brewers bullpen this year. And I want to specifically point out Aaron Ashby's had a pretty unbelievable run here out of our bullpen since he had coming back from injury. He had a pretty bad season in the minor leagues most of the year. The Brewers brought him up, stuck in the bullpen, and he's made unbelievable strides. He's really been lights out for like the last month. Even DL Hall, who's been kind of like a swingman back and forth from the bullpen to the starting rotation when needed, has really shown some great signs of being successful. And as you know, last year the Orioles on their run to the playoffs used him out of the bullpen pretty effectively. And I feel like he can be that same weapon for us. And then of course you've got our breakout reliever and Jared Koenig. What wasn't he, like the thousandth Brewer or something like that, Vince? In franchise history.
He was. He is Mr. 1000. He was the 1000th player in Brewers history. And just for those who are keeping track of this on this journey, and you can see how things change throughout the year, the Brewers are now on 1021 players in team history.
Wow. And those numbers go up year by year, well, much more so now than they did in the 1980s, I can tell you, or 90s even, I can tell you that. So,
Yeah, that's for sure.
no, yeah, so it's exciting time to be a Brewer fan, like I said earlier. So yeah, hopefully, I really am more confident the Brewers. I would like for them to get the bye, mostly to have home field advantage for that second and maybe even third round of the playoffs, but more so just to get by this dangerous wild card round. But I feel confident the Brewers will advance beyond the first round this year. And hopefully much further. So yeah, definitely exciting time. Real quick, I know we touched on this last episode, but just assuming Freddie Peralta pitches game one of the playoffs and probably Frankie Montas for the second game, is it still your belief that if we go to game three that Tobias Myers has earned that call, or will it be, in your opinion, Aaron Savali?
I think Tobias Myers. I know he's young. I know he's a rookie. I know he got pulled last night, I think a little early in that game with Arizona. But I still have a ton of faith in Tobias Myers. There was an interesting stat I was looking at recently, and kind of was struck by it that Tobias Myers. I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. Our interns have dropped the ball, but uh, Tobias Myers allows less runners to score once they're on base than nearly any pitcher in Major League Baseball. So the fact that he's pitching like that, which means he's pitching under pressure, speaks volumes to me about what he might be able to do in the postseason. So I get that he's a rookie, and that's not a knock on Aaron Savale at all, but I would go with Tobias in that position.
I actually agree with you on that, and we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see how our playoff rotation lines up. But yeah, I agree. If it's come to a third deciding game in the first round or something, that the Myers might most likely get the call. And again, it just speaks to the young core mentality, like and that Pat Murphy has, and that he's done so well with this team. So yeah, that's not surprising at all. So. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. I don't know if there's
Well,
anything else.
Craig, I just wanted to get back to your point just a second ago, really quick, and just say maybe we shouldn't. I know a lot of people and teams listen to our podcast, so maybe let's not mention our secret weapons in the bullpen, our left-handers, Ashby and Hall. I think that we don't want to give away our secrets to opposing organizations. It's sort of like when I have to tell you every single episode, don't say anonymous source Tom Carter's name. Like you can't call him anonymous source Tom Carter. You gotta go with T Carter or Tom C. Just like you gotta say lefties generally from the bullpen. You can't just give away the team secrets like that. You're gonna get our press passes revoked.
Okay, yeah, maybe I could just go with Aaron A or DLH.
Yeah,
That's
DLH or
pretty
DL
conspicuous.
or
So
DL
that
Hall would be fine
yeah,
because that kind of mirrors it. So
once more
it's already put in there as a secret. You can sell on the baseball card.
that makes sense. So all right, well,
Yeah.
thanks for tuning in, Brewer fans, and go get your playoff
Look,
tickets and save up because you're gonna need quite a few rounds worth of money to get the playoff tickets, and hopefully there's
yeah, I'm saving up for some airfare to come up there for the World Series, Craig. So yeah, absolutely. And let's just plug our social media here really quick. Give us a follow, Brew Crew Review 1 on Twitter. Send any questions to Scotty, him, and our interns. We'll get to those, I'm sure, one of these episodes. Brew Crew Review podcast with an S at gmail.com. Last thing, our interns put up a poll on social media. Craig, I'd like to hear your answer really quick. If obviously we still have 10 games to go, but if the season were to end today, who is the Brewers team MVP? And the choices that our interns put up were William Contreras, Willie Adames, Jackson Churio, or Colin Ray, or you could write in other. Who's your vote? And yeah.
Huh. Well, I will say I'm a little surprised that Colin Ray made the top four. And no offense, the man has had a great season and has been a huge reason for our success. But I'll just say not him. Let's see. I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna go Wilson Contreras. The fact that he's caught and like I don't think people realize how valuable or casual baseball fans realize how valuable an all-star level catcher that catches as many games as he does. When you have that many times and not have to use your backup catchers, it basically I don't understand WAR and all that stuff, but like believe me, he's very valuable to this baseball team, and I'm going with him for sure. Contreras.
Yeah, and Contreras actually was the team's MVP last season, for the record. So there is some precedence there for that. The fans, though, would disagree with you, and there are still votes coming in. There are 6 more hours left until this poll closes. But as of right now, Colin Ray has 5%. Contreras and Jackson Churio are actually tied at 22%, and Willie Adames, the runaway favorite, 51%.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. And he's had a great year too. I think it's first time ever. First time over 100 RBIs. Also, he's tied the major league record, I believe, with 13 three-run homers, which is tied Ken Griffey Jr., I believe, for the most ever in baseball history in one season. And there's still time to maybe hold that record on his own this year. So in over 30 home runs, obviously, especially after a down year last year. And I think he's number one most valuable clubhouse guy too. So I have no qualms about that. But from just a pure baseball standpoint, I'm still going with Contreras. But yeah, I don't disagree with Willie Adames being crowned that poll winner either. So what a great
and somebody actually wrote in Bryce Terang as one of the answers, just as a write-in vote. So we have some Tobias Myers, I think somebody wrote in. So there are a few, guys you can only mention so many options on Twitter. So I think that's interesting. And one of the comments talked about how great it is that unlike many years in team history, there's a plethora of guys to choose from, which has not always been the case, where there was, either not a good supporting cast or one clear-cut winner. So that's a good thing about this team. I think you can honestly make the case for 4 or 5 guys. And it should also be pointed out, Adames was the team MVP in 2021 and 2022, his first 2 seasons in Milwaukee, then Contreras last year. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening after the season. And
yeah, unfortunately, just how baseball economics works, it's very likely that Willy Adames will be making his final season's run here as a Milwaukee Brewer. You never know, but so the fans should cherish every moment of that, because he has been a key piece to this clubhouse and baseball club for a number of years since he was acquired via trade, of course, broken here on the Brew Crew Review podcast back in the day. So,
well, we were on our road trip to Tampa Bay that season.
Yep, absolutely. So, All right, well, let's stay classy, Chicago Cubs, and go Milwaukee Brewers in the 2024 postseason.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Vikram. Stay classy, Wisconsin. Go Brewers.